Welcome back, y'all, to another wonderful episode of Dreams, Dollar, and Destiny. I'm one of your co-hosts, Portia, with the Soul Card Studio, joined by my great friends, Malinda and Nick. We are all numerologists, astro-numerologists, I should clarify that, at the heart of everything. And I know we talk about a lot of different topics, social issues and things like that. But we also like to come back to home base every now and again and talk about the numbers, right? Because the numbers are present every day, right? Whether you're looking at the clock, looking at the date, looking at, whatever, right? Your bank account, numbers are always there. They're always present, will always be a part of your life. From the moment you took your first breath until the second you're put in the ground, there will be a number attached and associated with you. And how these numbers affect you, well, a lot of people are walking around unconsciously, not knowing how these energetic vibrations are affecting their daily lives and how they're being impacted. And so that's what we're talking about today. We're talking about it on a collective level. So we're talking about numbers being universal, right? So numbers are universal. Numbers do matter, right? All this good stuff because they ultimately do. And I think we all were basically sold a bill of lies in school when we only were focused on numbers as far as addition and subtraction, because really numbers mean way more than that, right? The universe is made of numbers. That math is the language of the universe. That's how a lot of quantum physicists and mathematicians, they break down the language of the universe through math equations. Another thing is the energetic vibration of the number of the day that you're in, the week that you're in, the year that you're in, right? It all has an effect on you and what can manifest within that time, right? Because we all know that this universe is governed by energy, vibration, and frequencies, yes? And so numbers encompass all three of those things. Numbers have an energetic frequency, they have a vibration that cannot be denied. Each number has its own unique properties. When that number is present, whether it's your birth number, whether it's your life path number, or the time you were born, right? Each one of those numbers have a significant impact on you. And then also your compatibility with others. You may try to figure out why you never got along with your mother or your father or a sister or a brother or aunt or what have you. Then you look at their numbers and you can see they're in opposition to yours, right? And so numbers can give you a really full picture of your life, looking forward and backwards, because looking at the numbers moving forward can help you plan wiser, and looking at the numbers looking backwards will help you understand why you went through certain things at certain periods. Yes. And so we have to really start integrating this knowledge on a daily basis of using the numbers to plan wisely. I'm all for energetic guidance. If you follow me at any time, on my YouTube channel or Substack, always talking about daily energy, and it always starts with the number. I always start with what universal day we're in, what universal month we're in, so you'll know collectively how you're being effective. Now, of course, if you like to go to any one of us for a personal reading, we can give you your personal numbers, right? Because each and every one of us have personal numbers that affect us on a daily basis as well, right? You have your personal days, your personal weeks, your personal months. But today we're not talking about personal things, right? We're going to the universe and seeing how it affects us on a collective. So one of the things we're going to talk about first is the universal year. So we're in 2026, which we've mentioned before on the show is a universal one. And then before I jump in, though, I just want to thank each and every one of you guys who tune in every week, to catch the latest info that we're dropping. I can't say it enough. We really do love our family, and we're grateful to each and every one of you that tune in. And if you have a friend or family member that can use this information, go ahead and pass this video along and have them subscribe to our channel as well. So, with that being said, let's go ahead and jump into the universal year, 2026 being a one. Now, how we came up with that, so we didn't make this up, y'all, right? We're not making up anything. We came up with the one was because 2 plus 2 plus 6 equals 10, and 1 plus 0 equals 1. And so that's how we come up with the universal one. And if you look at this year, it has been a brand new start for a lot of people, brand new beginnings, brand new way of being, fresh start, maybe on a new career. I mean, it could be anything for anyone at this particular time because this is the universal energy that the whole world is in, right? This energy does not just affect America, right? This is a universal energy that affects our world. And whether or not you're aware of it, it still has an effect on you. So let's jump into the universal year. And then also we're going to break down the numbers as they relate to each universal cycle, so you guys will know. And then we'll also tell you how you can find or find out what the universal year, month, date, and week, right? So we'll help you break down that information so you can follow along, each time the numbers change and see how that affects you. Because really, this is one big experiment. You don't know until you know, right? And so now that you're aware that these numbers are out there and they have an energetic effect, maybe it's time for you to kind of do a little research to see how this affects you, how your day goes when it's a universal 9 day. Is it better than a universal 2 day for you? Or they tend to be better, right? So then you can kind of plan your schedule around these energies, right? So yeah, so Queen put that up there, 10 equals the one. One is initiation, new beginnings, fresh start, leader, right? One is always the leader. One can be a lonely number too, right? So let's talk about that too, because a lot of people this year may be spending more time alone than probably what they care to, and not knowing why.
Yeah, yeah, agreed. And peace and love to the family. Again, I echo the gratitude to you all for tapping in with us and sharing this important information. And I love numerology, and there's various modalities that you can use to evaluate the energy that you might have went through or the energy ahead. But I love numerology because it's so easy to learn. Like our elder and our teacher likes to say, as long as you can count on your fingers, you can do numerology. And then from there, it's all about just learning the meanings of the numbers and the dualities of the numbers, because there's a strength and then there's the challenge of each number. But yes, that number one, it can be a lonely number, and like the cliche goes, it's lonely at the top. But it's a number that's about the self, putting the self first, not necessarily being selfish to to the point where it becomes negative, but you have to put your own objectives, your own needs, your own desires before anyone else, and then everyone else becomes secondary to your needs. So that's the other degree to that lonely part of it, is that you're focusing on you first and foremost.
Peace and love, family. Welcome back to Dreams, Dollars, and Destiny. We are very happy to be here with you for episode 14. Of course, talking about a topic that we all love, right? We all love numerology. We're all astro-numerologists. And this is an important topic, family, because the universal energy affects all of us as a collective. And that's the main thing that I want to make sure we get across to you tonight, that, the universal energy affects us all. And then, depending on whatever your individual frequency is, and I would say your life path and your expression number, those top three to me, those three are going to have different significance within different cycles. So whatever those numbers are, those are your significant cycles when we're dealing with the universal energy. So it's important to know your numbers. It's important to have that information, like Portia said, because even if you don't know your numbers, this is affecting you anyway, right? So it's better to be aware, and then you can be prepared. That's like the second time I've said that in 2 days. If you're aware, then you can get prepared. And that's just what the truth is of it. So it's really important to know what cycle you're in, because it can really help you to be in the right place at the right time. So, like they said about the number one, not much more really to say about the number one. We're in this one universal cycle. One other thing I could add about a one universal year that it would be significant for you if you're Leo or Aquarius, or if you're born on dates that add up to the one or to the four, because it's a one energy. Not to get too technical, but the one and the four are connected via the sun numbers. So it would be significant for you if you're those signs. or if your expression is a 1 or a 4, or if your life path is a 1 or a 4, this is a more significant cycle for you. So these are the patterns, that we're talking about. This is the timing. When we talk about timing in numerology, this is a part of the universal timing, right? Because there's different cycles, there's different sets of timing. So when we're talking about it universally, those are the core numbers that you need to look out for, and those are the ones that you can correlate to the universal cycle to see if that's significant for you, or like Portia said, or is it opposition to you. So that's very important. One other thing about the one universal year is there's a lot of construction going on. So you see a lot of construction sites, you see a lot of people building new buildings, fixing the roads, stuff like that, because it's a 1 year. That's all a part of new, right? New for the universe, going in different directions, so it's not, just about a fresh start, starting a new business. It's all things new, right? Because you just came out of a 9 cycle, so you're preparing. Everything's getting prepared, everything's getting a facelift. So you can even think of the 1 cycle as like a facelift, right? And your chance to really just start fresh with a clean slate. That's all I have to add right now.
Yeah, and just to hitch on to what Queen said, about the one. One is an action oriented number, right? It's a fire number. And that's one of the things that we're experiencing this year because we're under the fire horse as well. So those two things actually complement one another. That's why you're seeing a lot of things take place where people are being impulsive, right? They're just going off the cuff. Things are just happening at random, seems like. That's because there's a lot of action but no thought behind it. That's how one just works. One is about going, 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 right? It's not going to stop to think about what the consequences are because one is an initiator, right? One is the one that's going to get the party started. Now, whether it's going to be there to end the party, we don't know, right? But we know that one's going to start the party. They're going to be the first one to throw that hand, right, or toss that rock. So there's going to be a war that's going to be provoked right during the 1 year, which we already saw, because it's a fire number, right? We can't get around that. And then also all the activity we've been having with the heat this year. So that's no coincidence because we're in a 1 year, it's a 5 year. Heat is imminent, right? We're not going to get around that either in this type of energy that we're in. And again, this is collectively because not just people here in America were passing out. You had people in Europe and other countries too, right? Because this is universal energy. So I want people to understand that, yeah, you may not be aware that this is a 1 year, but guess what? The universe knows what divine timing we're on. And you're going to start to see events that are in alignment with what the number is about. And that's what we're witnessing, right? We're at the 7th month of this year and we've seen a lot already. So I just don't even know what's next to come. But I did want to put that out there that one is a fire number, it's action oriented. So this is the year for you to take action on something new, right? I don't care if it's a new exercise routine. I don't care if it's a new hairstyle. It's got to be something different that you haven't done before, and you need to take action on it now. Now, I would say, channel that energy into something a little more sustainable, like maybe starting some type of investment plan or something like that. But everybody got their starts, whatever that is for you. Maybe you're starting to see that this relationship isn't working out for you, right? And that happened in the 1 year. So there are different ways we can look at this number and how it manifests in your life. And just as Queen said, if you're one of those people who are rocking that 1 or 4 vibration, then this is your element, right? This is the year for you to do you and actually come out on top because being selfish in this energy, not a bad thing, right? Because the energy really supports that. Not to say you needed to neglect the needs of others or be condescending or turn off, not be helpful or friendly. But at the end of the day, you don't need to sacrifice yourself anymore because this year should be about you, what your dreams are, what your goals are, and where you want to be next year when we're going into that 2 year.
Yeah, and last thing I'll say is some of you may be wondering, what about the 2026? So keeping things very simple, since this may be an introduction to a lot of people when it comes to numerology. A lot of you may be unfamiliar, this might be your first introduction to numerology. And yes, the 2026 does work in the background, but for simplicity purposes, we're just focusing on that base number of one, that final digit once we add up the 2026 together. But yes, the 2026 does work behind the scenes.
Yes, it works behind the scenes, and all of it is important energy. Even when you add it up, it equals to a 10. So we would also take that into consideration and look at that double digit, right? And then you break that down and you want to look at that one. And just to transition a little bit, whenever you're looking to get universal energy or find out what the universal energy is, you always have to start with the universal year. There's no other way to really get the other equations that you need. That's the first number you need to start with. So you can do this for any year. I know we're talking about 2026 right now. But if Mercury is retrograde right now, right? So you might want to reflect on something from the past or something that happened in a previous year. All you have to do is take that previous year that you want to reflect on and add those numbers together and then reduce it until you get a single digit. Of course, unless you hit a master number 22 or a master number 11. Or even sometimes it could be a master number 33 year. So that's how you get the universal year. And then once you have the universal year, now you have other cycles like the universal month, the universal week, and the universal day. Okay.
As far as getting the universal month, the universal year, because it does set the foundation for everything, and that's how you would find the rest of the information. Like for instance, if you wanted to talk about the universal month, we're in July, which is the seventh month. So 7 plus 1, which is the universal year, will give you 8. So we're actually in the eighth month, not a seven. And so what does that mean? Well, that means abundance, power, manifestation, executive energy. Someone once told me that 6 and 8 were kind of similar, with romance and finance for 6, and then finance and romance for 8. So this could be a month where you have maybe some suitors, right? You may have some interest, love interest may pop up for you. You may be in your playgirl era or your playboy era during this eighth month. You also could have abundance, right? It doesn't mean necessarily money sometimes. Maybe there's abundance of time. Maybe you have more time on your hands than what you had last month, right? Sometimes when we think about abundance, it doesn't necessarily have to mean money all the time. Also could mean excessiveness. Maybe you're overspending this month, right? That's the negative side of the 8, because that just means that you're probably being very wasteful, being excessive. Um, Eights at the same time, they're ruled by Saturn. So they kind of have this self defeating energy sometimes about themselves, right? Or they'll be kind of self-restricting in some kind of ways for a punishment. So kind of watch that when it comes to the 8, and that's just the Saturnian energy that kind of rules that number. It's a restrictive planet, so that's what it does. But at the end of the day, have fun this month. I know we're in retrograde, so the abundance would probably be this. Because retrograde happened in Cancer, which is related to family, home, and responsibility, don't be surprised if you have someone from the past pop up, maybe a past love interest, maybe a past friend from high school. Don't be surprised if you're visiting old family conversations where there's some family wounds that need to be healed, right? And so there may be abundance of that happening now because we're in the Cancer retrograde that's happening, well, Mercury that's happening at this moment. So we have to look at the energy in totality, right? We look at the number of the month that we're in as far as universal energy, and then we also look at any other planetary effects that may be going on. And so you can kind of couple the energy together because it works in harmony, right? It works in tandem with one another, whether the planets are here or there, and then the number of vibration that we're in as well. So that's just something for a lot of people to be aware of, because we talk a lot about numerology, but we don't cover the astrological aspect of things too often because we really focus on the numbers. But look at where the planets fall and then the number of the month and see how this works out for you. And it really is a great experiment because back in 2017, that was the last one year we had, right? Collectively, that was the last one year. So you can actually go back into 2017 to see what was going on in July of that year for you, right? If you can remember back those 9 years, just to see if something similar is playing out for you now. So that's just one way to kind of look at the month, the past year, and then kind of see if the energies are in alignment with what's happening and what's going on now. And then you can kind of plan your future accordingly too, because if you remember what happened in July of 2017, then you'll be like, huh, well, maybe this will happen this time, or maybe I should plan for this, because you got some past, references to go off of.
We already covered that there was a series of the cycles that you can be in at any given time. So Portia just covered the month. So we're going to be talking about the universal week now. In the universal week, to get that, like we said, you have to start off with that universal year. You get your universal month. And now you're ready to look for your universal week position. So what you do is you take the universal month and you look at the week position that you're in. So what we do is we break the week down into 4 sectors. So you have 4 weeks in the month, numerologically speaking. So the first week starts from obviously the first date of the month up through the seventh. That's your first week. Your second week starts from the 8th of the month up through the 14th. That's your second week. And then from the 15th up through the 21st, that's your third week. And then the 22nd to the end of the month, that is your fourth week. Okay. So you have your week position 1, 2, 3, and 4. And in order to get what universal week you're in, you have to add the universal month to the week position. So let's do an example. We are in a universal year 1. So we start with the 1. We're in July. That's the seventh month position. 1 plus 7 is 8. We're in the 8 universal month. So in order to get the universal week, we have to look at what week position we're in. Today is July 13th. So we are in that second week position. So then you add the 8 universal month plus the 2 week position, that equals a 10. So we're in a 1 universal week. So then you have a 1 universal year, a 8 universal month, and a 1 universal week. And that's how we break that down. And again, don't have to belabor the point. You already know whatever cycle you're in is going to be more significant for you, more important for you. The themes will be stronger for you if it matches one of your core numbers. Okay. So that's how we look at the universal week.
So right, ready for the universal day. All right, so the universal day. Now, when you consider these cycles and you consider the themes and the energy and what needs to be done, think about universal year. What, and it's a 1 universal year, what can you start over the course of the year? Universal month energy. What what uh what needs to be done and what can be feasibly done within the course of 30 days or 31 days, depending on the month. July has 31 days. So what can be completed in the course of the 31 days? The week, what can be done within those factions that Malinda mentioned. And then the universal day, what do you need to focus on within those 24 hours that that you're awake, of course, unless you're doing some high spiritual metaphysical science and you're doing some work in the astral plane or something. But in your waking hours, what do you need to focus on within those waking hours in that 24-hour span? So the universal day, as Portia and Malinda said, you have to start with that universal year. And so in order to get to the universal day, it's a trickle down effect. You take the universal year to get your universal month. Now, the equation for the universal day is the universal month plus the day position, aka the calendar date, and that's what brings you to the universal day. So again, to review, the universal year is 1, and we got that by adding up the 4 digits of the current year, 2026. 2 plus 0 plus 2 plus 6, that equals 1. Then we calculate the universal month by taking that universal 1 year and adding it to the 7th calendar month, which is July. 1 plus 7 equals 8. And then to get the universal day, we take that universal month, that 8, and add it to the day that we want to know about. So today is the 13th. 1 plus 3 equals 4. So 8 plus 4 would make this day a number 3 universal day. Now, you might be wondering, well, what about the universal week? Well, the universal week, that is a newer concept that was created by Lloyd Strayhorn, something that he's battle tested and found to be accurate. So this is the distinction from the other universal cycles. We don't you don't necessarily need the universal week to calculate the universal day, but you do need to know the year and the month to calculate the universal week, but you don't need the universal week to calculate the universal day, if that makes sense. So I just want to make that distinction, just in case some of you are wondering, well, why doesn't the week build on the month to add up to the day? You can tap into Live with Lloyd and leave him a question on there and ask him, Lloyd, why didn't you use the universal week to calculate the universal day? You can ask him that, since he came up with that universal week concept. But anyway, like I was saying, that's how you calculate the universal day, by adding up the universal month plus the day position. And today would make it a 3 universal day. So within these 24 hours, with that number 3, you want to focus on self-improvement and maintaining an optimistic mindset, since that number 3 is connected to the mind. You want to focus on growth and expansion, and you can put that within the context of your universal week, universal month, and universal day, and universal year. So for example, if it's a 1 universal year and it's a 3 universal day, that 1 is about newness, launching things that are new, focusing on yourself, and 3 is about self-improvement. So that's doubling down on that energy to improve yourself, improve your image in some way. And on a 3 universal day, if you started something new this year, or if you plan on starting something new, when the way that works with the 1 is, how can you grow and expand that new endeavor and that new project that you started? Now, I mentioned earlier in the show at the beginning that there's a duality to all of the numbers. So if the positive parts of that 3 is the growth, expansion, self-improvement, optimism, ambition, the challenging side of it would be the excess, the negative side of self-expression, because one of the traits of the 3 is the self-expression. So the negative side would be the slander and the gossip and things of that nature. So if that energy is calling you to express yourself on that 3 universal day, you want to do that while avoiding going into the negative side of that, which is talking about folks and backbiting and getting into the he said, she said. And one of the health challenges of the number 3 is those overstrained nerves. So making sure you're not overdoing your work or your play, because you can strain yourself from working too hard, and you can strain yourself from playing too hard too. So that's how you kind of balance out that energy. And you, in the same example that I use for using that number 3 within the context of the 1 universal year, you can put that 3 universal day within the context of that universal week and that universal month too, because it all works together. And then since it's the 13th, that's the 13. 1 plus 3 is the 4, the 4 calendar position or day position. That adds a degree of structure to your ambition and to your expression and things of that nature. So there's multiple ways that you can look at these numbers. There's multiple meanings to these numbers. So I would suggest consider what you have going on in your life, what is the most relevant to you, and use that energy that is most relative to you in terms of the meanings of the numbers. So that is the universal day.
And just like Nick was saying with that universal day energy, if you know it's going to be universal 3 day, look to see if it actually is in alignment with your number to see how the day may go for you. Now, three is actually complementary to a lot of different numbers. Three, six, and nine always go together. So if you're born on the third, or any date that adds up to a three or a six or a nine, then that 3 day will benefit you more so than any other numbers because they complement one another. Now, again, there are some opposition to the number three, so you just kind of have to watch out for that. But at the end of the day, what we're telling you is these numbers affect you on a collective level. We're not talking about personal. Personal gets even more granular as far as what affects you. But what you can do is look on a larger scale to see how this universe is playing out this energy. Because three is a social energy. See if you're more social on a 3 day than not, right? Or also on a 3 day, see if you have if your focus is scattered, right? Because three is scattered energy, and threes tend to worry as well. So that's the negative side of that. So if you are on a 3 day or a universal 3 day and you notice that you do have a lot more worry, or you don't have a lot of focus going, then maybe it's the universal energy that's influencing you more so than not. So those are the things to kind of look at. We want to look at the numbers in both lights, whether it's negative or positive, or good or bad, or the shadow side or the positive side, however you want to put it. But we live in a universe of duality, and so the numbers can work for you either way, depending on what side of the scale you're on.
And also, since the topic is numbers are universal, we can also look at this with the patterns that you see, the synchronicities that you see. Pay attention to those things, take note, when you look at the clock, you see that 1111, or you're behind someone with like a 222 license plate. Because those numbers can also give you, it's like the universe is talking to you, right? So when you see stuff like that, take note about what you're thinking about at that time, right? Take note of the things that are going on and how that is making you feel. And then what I would also say is make sure that you're journaling about this stuff. That's one good way to see how the universal cycles are really affecting you. You can, journal. We just taught you how to get the universal energy from universal year down to the universal day. So you can always look at those things and then journal about how that day went for you, about how this month went for you. So you can reflect on it. And then these can be clues when you hit the cycle again, because, right, everything is cyclical. So it's really just about paying attention to the numbers. Numbers are everywhere, numbers are involved with everything we do. Like Portia said at the onset. So know your numbers. Knowing your numbers is about knowing thyself, and that's what we really do as astro-numerologists. We want you to know yourself. So that's what it's all about. So make sure you're paying attention to what synchronicities you see. And 9 times out of 10, the ones that you see, are specific to you some way. They're either specific to you via your sign or via your number or one of your core numbers. So that's definitely something that you should be looking out for and watching out for, and recording it. Record it so you can go back to it and you can really study it and see how that's affecting you so you can use that knowledge to move forward.
Yeah, and look at those numbers holistically too. So you can write those numbers down. And like Malinda said, think about what's going on in your life and then go and look up the numbers. You can look up the numbers. Let's say if it's a triple digit or quadruple digit number, you can look up the meaning of it, and then you can also add it up to see what the root number is, and take the meaning of that as well, and look at it from all angles and see what resonates with you the most.
Yeah, and that's what I mentioned. Like, go back to 2017. That was the last time we had a 1 year. You can go specifically to July of 2017 in your life. I'm not sure how many of you guys keep journals, but if you do keep a journal, go back to your journal in 2017 and see what was happening this month, because that's going to give you an indication of what could happen this cycle, right? Because again, these are cycles that repeat, right? And it's the same energy that's present, but you may be in a different position than where you were 9 years ago, right? So there's going to be a little bit of variance as far as what actually occurs. But at the end of the day, you can almost bet that you're going to experience the same type of energy that was present back in July of 2017. And there was a lot going on in 2017. I mean, as far as like the U.S. and what was happening. I mean, in 2017, we had a glacier melting, right? A fire year, right? So, of course, it would be hot and the glacier would melt. They had an inflatable Trump like chicken in front of the White House. It just shows you what happened this past July with him being in front of the White House. But yeah, they had an inflatable Trump chicken. Because remember, he was president in 2017. Seemed like deja vu to y'all, right? We had a hurricane that hit in 2017, so we might have one again this year. It actually happened in September, September 5th. So that may happen again this year because of the weather patterns that we're having with the extreme heat. They're talking about El Nino right this year. So that definitely is good mix for a good hurricane to happen sometime later on this year. So there are certain things that we can look at from 2017 to kind of see what's coming up for us. And then they had what North Korea did a missile strike test or something, something related to war in 2017 on a worldwide scale. So we're still not out the woods yet with this whole war thing with Iran. I mean, I know we signed an agreement, but there's still some tension. So it's no telling what the end of the year may look like with that, or what may happen, along with what's going on with that conflict and other ones that we, or that the United States has been provoking around the world, right? So these are the things that we need to look at. So if you go back to 2017 and just do a reflection, you can kind of guess to see what's coming up for you, during this month and this year.
Yeah, and actually, at the time of this recording, it sounds like that ceasefire then went out the window. They ramped up the attacks again at the time of this recording, and also with the weather. What I saw in the news too is that this extreme weather with the triple digits. Well, speaking where I am in the Northeast, the triple digits, and then the torrential rain and the flooding and all of that. The meteorologists are saying that this is going to be the new normal. Emphasis on that word "new" in a number 1 year. So they're saying this weather pattern. This is going to be the. This is how it's going to be here on out. That's their prediction. So new things happening in the one universal year.
So you telling me we got to get used to this?
That's what the weather people are saying. I'm not saying that they know everything and that they're 100% right about everything, but that's what they're predicting. They're predicting that this is going to be the new wave. No pun intended.
So now we're going to talk about the meanings of the universal years and the theme, a little bit of the themes of each cycle. And we're just going to break it down into three. So I'll go first. I'll do the first three. So the way that I like to look at the cycle, I like to look at it as a story. It's a story, and you can look at it that way. In the universal one, we've talked extensively about the universal 1 year in this episode. So we already know the theme of that one universal year is going to be new beginnings, innovations, getting a fresh start. Maybe it's a new career. Maybe you're moving to a new place. Maybe your business is changing to a new area or something like that. There's going to be a lot of construction going on in the 1 year. Just a new direction. And it's also a career cycle, and it's a travel cycle in the 1 year. And again, when you're in that 1 year, that's going to be significant for you if you're a Leo or an Aquarius, or if your life path, your Your life path or your expression or your individual frequency is a 1 or a 4, that's going to be a significant time for you. That 1 year, like we said, it's like a story. So that 1 year, that's you planting a seed, right? You're planting a seed, and this is your story. So the seed is your story. So whatever that project is, whatever that new thing is that you're starting, this is your seed for the year. And this is what you're going to have to grow throughout the next cycles. And then when you get to that 2 universal year, that's when you're going to be germinating that seed. So this is going to be a slow moving time. Slow changes are happening in a 2 year. You're going to want to deal with partnerships, relationships, cooperation, collaboration with other people, being very diplomatic. And it's going to be a little bit of an emotionally sensitive time. So, this is the time for you to really germinate your seed, nourish it, water it, right? And that 2 represents water energy. So you want to water that seed in that 2 universal energy. That 2 universal energy is going to be significant for you if you're a Cancer or in a minor way a Pisces, or if you're born on dates that add up to the 2 or the 7, or if you're a life path 2 or 7, or if your expression is a 2 or 7. And then when you get to the 3 universal year, now that seed has sprung up out of the ground. You've watered the seed and now the seed sprung up. So the seed is expressing itself in this 3 year. It wants to get out there, right? It's abundance. It wants to have a little fun. It wants to network. In that 3 energy, you can network that seed. This is a social cycle. I also call the 3 cycle a minor travel cycle because all the social events that you're going to be invited to this month, you're going to want to travel to them, right? You got to travel to them. So it's really a minor travel cycle, like local travel gets a little bit busier on those 3 days, is what I've noticed. But that's the time to have fun. It's going to be all about the words you use, communicating, and just self expression, abundance, and being really joyful, right? Socially magnetic. And again, when you're in that 3 energy, that is significant for you if you are a Pisces or a Sagittarius, or if you're born on a date that adds up to the 3, if your life path is a 3, or your expression, which is your full name, if that's a 3, that's a significant cycle for you. So again, that's it. Very ambitious cycle. So those are my 3.
All right. And then after you done had your fun, you socialize and had all your fun, it's time to get back to work. That's that number 4. Because it's balancing everything. Of course, we would love to have fun all the time, but we have dreams, we have dollars that we want to attract, and we have our destiny that we want to fulfill. So, in order to do that, we got to put our heads down and go to work, baby. And that's what the number 4 cycle is all about. So, yeah, that number 4 is going to work. It's mapping out a plan. It's not a time where you just want to go with the flow and do things all willy nilly. Like if I'm saying that in my Coach Robinson voice from the Steve Harvey show, you just can't be doing stuff all willy nilly during a number 4 year. You gotta have a plan. You gotta have a roadmap. Have some type of idea of where you want to go. You want to be organized during a 4 year, and you also want to be very resourceful, since your resources may be limited and restricted during the 4 year. Now, you want to look at the glass half full rather than half empty, because people might think, oh, 4, I'm all boxed in, I'm limited. But no, 4 is a time for you to regroup, restructure, and build a strong foundation for yourself. Now, astrologically, number 4 is connected to Aquarius, and it's most impacted on those who are born on those birthdays that add up to a 4. Now, if you did what you needed to do during that 4 year and you locked in and handled your business, then you could take your foot off the gas a little bit for that number 5 cycle. That number 5 brings freedom, change, and movement. And it's that midway point in that 1 to 9 cycle. So you can take inventory. Actually, during this sequence of numbers 4, 5, 6, you can take inventory of where you are and make adjustments. So you can see what's working, what's not working, and make the proper changes during that number five year. And we're getting back to a little bit of fun. We're getting back to a little bit more communication, putting yourself out there in the public, and socializing a bit more, but making sure you do all of that in balance and moderation. Make sure you're having fun in balance and moderation, and making sure you're working in balance and moderation so you don't overwork yourself, you don't strain your energy and your nerves too much. And with that communication, that number five is connected to the planet Mercury, which is your Gemini and your Virgo. And then once you've got out of that five cycle, you transition into your sixth cycle. So you went from making your adjustments and doing things out in the public to becoming a little bit more recluse, and dealing more with your immediate circle, which is your family. That number six is that number of family duty and home responsibilities. So you're going from being outside to coming in a little bit and focusing on your immediate family and those duties and responsibilities. And there's also a bit of change in there too. Changes within your home. You might redesign your home. You might move out of one home into another home. You'll be making personal changes as well. Changes to your appearance, changes to your style, changes to your hair, your wardrobe, your body through working out, changes to your mental too by going back to school or picking up some classes, attending YouTube University maybe, and picking up some new skills and new information, dealing with your finances and your romance, like Malinda and Portia said earlier in the show. That's the sixth cycle. So there's so to learn more about the in and the outs, you should go over to Numerologists, because he talks about what are those in cycles and what are those out cycles. That's kind of what we're talking about a little bit here when we speak about being out there and then coming back inside. But that's oh yeah, I forgot the astrological part, the astro-numerics of that. So astrologically, the six is connected to that Taurus and that Libra energy, and most affected are those born on those days that add up to the six.
All right. So six is about family, and seven, you're going back into yourself, right? So seven is the seeker, the mystic, the hermit, right? The one who does the spiritual work. Seven, I'm not going to say they're lonely, but they do tend to be alone, because in order to do work with spirit, you have to be alone. That's work that requires no one else but you. So during a seven cycle, you may find that you may adhere more to religious programs if you're more religious, or maybe tuning into more spiritual programs. Maybe joining a group, right, built around those type of themes or those commonalities, where maybe a spiritual group, meditation group, or something like that. You may find yourself gravitating towards people who are going through similar situations as you, right? Because like I said, seven is a lonely number, but they enjoy company too. You know what they say, misery loves company. But one of the negative sides of the seven is that a lot of times they can be skeptical, right? Sarcastic. So you kind of have to watch out for that energy and being a recluse, because again, in order to do the spiritual work, it does require you to be alone, but don't isolate yourself to the point where no one knows that you're still alive. And that's where you have to kind of balance that energy. We go back into the six, right? To balance that energy of feeding the spirit, but also being out there for the world as well, because you have to be able to do both. And also during the 7 year, money is not your friend. It doesn't come in very easily during the 7 year, because that's not mainly your focus. Your focus is how can you get right with God? How can you get right in life, right? And that's mainly the focus for a 7 year. So money is not going to be a thing. If you try to go out and go make money, you probably find it kind of challenging. Don't be surprised if you fall behind on some bills or something like that during the 7 year, because that's just what it is. Seven is ruled by Neptune, so it has that energy. And so Piscean energy as well, because seven is a water number. And then, after you did all the reflection in a 7 cycle or a 7 year, then you go into an 8 year. Now it's the time to be back outside, because eight is that number. Eight is that number, like, look at me, right? See me, hear me, right? I'm here, I'm out for the world. Eights are all about power. The negative side of that, they can be too power hungry, right? Too driven, material driven for anything spiritual. But eight is also about abundance, and so you'll see things start to expand, i.e., your bank account, right? Because eight is a number of finance, and so during an 8 cycle, you tend to see money expand. Now, during that 7 cycle, money's not going to be there for you, but during this 8 cycle, if you did the right reflection, um, i.e., planning for what's coming next, then yes, your 8 year will be great, because you put plan into motion on an 8 year, and now you're experiencing abundance and the manifestation and the power of the eight and everything that it has to give. But if you didn't plan correctly, then you'll be on the other side of that, where you'll always be stressing, striving, and hustling and grinding, right? Because eight is that grind energy, and it will keep you hustling, and you still out there trying to chase that dollar if you didn't plan correctly in your 7 year. So going into that, you know that eight is a very powerful number. It's ruled by Saturn. And sometimes in an 8 cycle, you can be a victim of a robbery or something like that, depending on how flashy you are, right? Showing your money, flashing your gold, right? So don't be surprised in the 8 year you get robbed for material things because you were that person. So you kind of have to watch out for that, and not being out there flashing your goods, for people to take, because that you can attract that during the 8 cycle as well. But again, with it being Saturnian energy, you do have, Capricorn being ruled by the number eight. And so, that energy and the eight goes perfectly together, because it's odd and unusual energy. Typically, people who are eights don't get along with people who are fours, or that four energy doesn't complement them. So you kind of have to work, watch out for that with the number eight. Now, going into the 8 year, this should be, or your 8 cycle, which should be your greatest cycle, right? That is the cycle of abundance. But now we're going into a 9 year. Now, you may still experience some of that abundance a little bit, because energy doesn't just cut itself off immediately, it kind of fades into one another. So, in the beginning of your 9 year, you may still experience some abundance and some money coming in. But then towards middle way in that 9 cycle, you may see that stuff kind of dry up a little bit. And the reason is because you're going into a new cycle, right? Nine is the ending, is the completion. Nine is known as the humanitarian, also known as the hermit, right? Because nines tend to be, they can be reflective in a sense, but they also are very, how can I say, not very as spiritual as the sevens, but they have this humanitarian side to them, where they self-sacrifice themselves a lot in the name of the good, right? And so you kind of have to watch that in that nine energy, because you may want to play the victim or the martyr or something like that, when that's not even your lane, right? That's not what you're supposed to be doing in the 9 year. 9 year is all about release, completion, finales. Whatever you need to let go, let that go. Whatever you need to release, whether it's cleaning out your closet, cleaning out, just old mental clutter, or people that you don't even need anymore, right? You may have that backstabbing friend that you've been friends with for so long that you know she doesn't mean you any good, and you know you need to get rid of that. Well, that's the perfect time to do it, is in the 9 cycle, because that will fully release you from that relationship. And all you have to say, I release, this relationship, let the divine take over in this 9 year. And right, people will go away from you, and you will be wondering where they went, right? It happens just that quickly in the 9 year, because that energy is there to support you on that. And then nine, it's a very powerful number, because again, it signifies the ending, right? And you're getting ready to go into a new cycle. And the funny thing is, I know we kind of glossed over it a little bit with this year being a 10 1. 10 is the compound number, and 10 is the number of success. So, whatever you put action to this year, as far as something new, know that you're going to be successful in that, because that 10 is supporting that one vibrational energy in this year. So we do have some people who are in a 9 personal year. So while everybody's getting started, you may be ending, but that's okay, right? Because you're getting ready to start the party next year, right? And so you're learning how to end new in old things and start new beginnings all in a 1 year if you're in a non-personal year. So I just find that to be fascinating. Now, nine also Pluto and then Scorpio, right? Scorpio would be the energy or the planetary sign that nine rules. And, for me, it is one of those things. It's kind of funny because nine is a fire number along with one and three and nine. They're fire numbers. But people don't tend to really take too much action during the 9 year. Well, I guess so. In a sense, they tend to clear out the clutter, get rid of things that they no longer need. But it's not a time to really start taking real action on anything. It's really a time just to let go, right? During those nine cycles. Now, with that being said, we're going to jump into the solutions here. And, every
Mm.
episode, we got to break y'all off with some solutions. Now, we just can't give you the word without giving you some actionable steps you can take every week, right, to make changes in your life. We don't talk about it, we be about it here. So, one of the first things is know your numbers. Now, you may not know your personal number from the information that we gave you on this episode, but it's enough for you to get started to find out what is universally affecting the collective and then seeing how that plays out on your behalf, right, in your energy and how that works. Now, recognize when the universe cycles matches your numbers, right? So, just what Nick said, Monday, July 13th is a 3 day. See how that day works out for you. The following day is going to be a 4 day, right? So you can follow the succession from here on out. Even if you didn't add up the numbers, you know that if Monday's a 3 day, then surely four has to follow three for a Tuesday, five has to follow for a Wednesday, right? And so that's how you'll learn the universal numbers just by starting off with the first one you know. Start marking up on the calendar like that, and then see how that plays out for you during those universal days. Pay attention to synchronicities. And, this is a shameless self promotion, but I do have a free synchronicity tracker. If you guys are interested in that, you can go to my Substack and you'll get it for free. It's an angel synchronicity tracker. And so anytime you see those numbers repeating, the 111s, the 222s, 33s, you can actually mark it on the tracker what was happening, what you were thinking at that time, so you can see what those numbers are trying to tell you. Because most often people will see those angel numbers or the repeating numbers and they don't even pay attention. But if you recognize it and you're aware of it when you see it in that moment, pay attention to what your thoughts were when you saw that number or what was going on or what was around you at that time, right? Start recording these things to see how the universe is speaking to you, because the universe is speaking to all of us and it's all through numbers. Now, also journal to record experiences, right? Just like I was just mentioning with the synchronicity tracker, it gives you a way to start tracking this energy. As I mentioned multiple times in the show, go back to 2017. That was the last 1 year. See what was going on for 2017 for you. That's called reflecting on previous cycles, right? And that will help give you an indication of what's to come for you this month or even next month, right? This is your small window into a preview of energy that you've already experienced before, right? It's just that now you're in a different position and it may show up in a different way, but it's still the same type of energy. And also, this helps you plan for future events. If you know where you've been, then you know where you're going, right? It's all about direction. And so the numbers give you a direction in which you can follow. They're like breadcrumbs that you can follow every day to see how your day will manifest for you, what you should and shouldn't do in that day, right? The boundaries that you're working within, and why certain things didn't work out for you that day, because you may be in an opposition day. Know your opposition numbers, right? Book a reading with any one of us. We can give you that information. Once you know your opposition numbers and your positive numbers that work for you, then you'll know which days are going to be more beneficial for you on a more personal level. Like I said, the information we're given today is on a collective. This is for the universal. So if you want to track this to just to see how the universal days affect you, that's perfect. But if you want more granular information, more personal information, book a personal reading so you can get this info, and therefore you can start tracking this on a personal level and planning your days more succinctly. So that pretty much is it for the solutions that we have. And so the next thing is the question of the week. How are you going to use the numbers moving forward to plan your days? Right? How are you going to use the numbers moving forward to plan your days, right? And so we want to know, now that you know how to calculate the universal day, month, year, and all that good stuff, how are you going to use this information to your benefit, right? Or see how to plan your days out. Because telling y'all, this is life changing information. Once you learn this, you won't look at your days the same way at all. And I know when we all started getting numerology, we shifted our perspective and how these days occur, and we know now that hey, every day has a positive and a negative. Let me see how it's gonna fall for me. Now, I'm not saying be a prognosticator, but on a day three, this is gonna be bad for me. No, what I'm saying is be aware, right? Be aware that something can go wrong that day. Not saying that it will, because I don't believe in Murphy's Law, right? I'm just saying it could, right? There's a possibility, and you're aware of that versus wondering why your day turned out crappy or wondering why, this happened to you this day. Now you'll know.
I just want to say peace and love to the 3D family out there. And thank you so much for tuning in to episode 14. And looking forward to seeing you next week.
Oh yeah, I like that 3D because I keep saying triple D, and triple D sounds wild. So yes, shout out to the 3D family. Love you all. Thank you all for tapping in. Use these numbers. I'm Nick Westbrooks of Supreme Numerics. You can reach me at supremenumerics.com. And I look forward to seeing you all next Monday.
And thanks, family, for joining us for another great week. This was one of those ones. I hope you guys got a lot of information out of it. We did drop a lot of nuggets. Hope you guys are paying attention and can use this information to change your life. Again, this is 3D, right? We're out. Enjoy the rest of your week. Take care.